Hi, welcome to the Research and Academic Writing Workshops for UIII. My name is Lizzie Summerfield. I'm visiting the university from Australia, and I'll be talking you through the workshops. The first topic I want to talk to you about is titled "Sire or I may be culturally rude, but it's academically key." This week I learned from a new colleague here at UIII that sire or I is rude in Indonesian culture. I think this is also true in other cultures or subcultures. For example, I was the first of my family to go to university, so for a long time I remained in respectful awe of the scholars I was reading. This reasonable as well as cultural deference may be one of the first internal obstacles you need to overcome as a new researcher and writer. As well as developing the content and substance of your research, your task will be to find your voice for documenting your thesis or argument to your examiners. And that's okay. All research and writing involves recognising and balancing the subjective and the objective, the internal drivers and the external evidence in some way. However much we have pretended in the past that scholarship is pure objectivity. We mustn't confuse the rigorous with the objective. You still need to be disciplined, systematic, thorough in your data gathering and analysis, but you need also to recognise your legitimate presence in the process. In that spirit of the subjective always being present in some form in what we think and say, I'll briefly introduce my research and professional background so you can be aware of where I'm coming from. In the same way that you need to read your literature critically, you need to assess any advice I'm offering in the same way in order to arrive at your own conclusions. I have a Master of Arts by Research in the history of women's educational leadership and a PhD in science, examining the history of leadership in environmental sustainability. Both degrees are from the University of Melbourne in Australia. The doctorate was, in part, a test case for using the humanities to inform scientific inquiry. It was interdisciplinary. My method is narrative, and I use theory sometimes as an analytical tool, but I don't regard it as an indispensable research tool. My view is that scientific rigour is achieved through the use of what we call the scientific method, the rigorous search for and analysis of the evidence. That rigour is as applicable in the unquantifiable humanities as it is in the quantifiable sciences and maths. As I said, I think it's important for you to know where I'm coming from so that you have a framework against which to critically assess what I'm about to say. You should apply the same constructive critique to anything you read for your research. In the university's spirit of unity in diversity, I have two quotes for you, one Islamic and one Christian. The first is, "The ink of the scholar is more sacred than the blood of the martyr," and that's the Prophet Muhammad. The second is, "If you want to change the world, pick up your pen and write," and that's from the Reverend Martin Luther King. These are two quotes about the impact of scholarly writing, what you are currently engaged in learning. So don't underestimate the social contribution you are making in learning the craft of research. You all have the potential to practice a principle of sustainability, that is, trying to leave the world a better place for the next generation. Your work has the potential to inform the leadership of politicians, secular and religious policymakers, businessmen, educators and others in profound ways. You are also simultaneously learning how to be scholars in a language that is not your first. A very hard double act. For many of you, English will be a second, third, or even fourth language. I deeply respect and admire, but can't inhabit, that experience of listening, speaking, thinking and writing in a language that's not my first. But in persevering with this dual task of research and writing in a language not your first, you have the potential to make global scholarship truly inclusive. So remember, be rigorous, objective, and stand on the shoulders of giants in your work, while at the same time working at finding your own unique scholarly voice. Thank you for listening. That's the end of the first workshop. Next time we'll be talking about a different topic. I hope you'll join us then.